once Terence, as Leona put it, I think, dispensed with, I can't remember exactly the term, but dealt with the previous interpretations of survivor behavior, or actually the focus on active heroism, and began to focus on the heroism of just surviving, with quotations around just. He began to turn in a direction that Carolyn spoke of in her reading of the passage from The Survivor. He began to turn toward us. He began to turn toward what he considered to be the secondary witness. In a video clip from his own testimony given at Yale University as part of the archive of Holocaust testimonies there, a clip that I will show at the beginning of tonight's 7 o'clock program, Terence said that he would like to think about applying what might be thought of as the Nuremberg Rule, that if you see a crime and you don't do something about it, then you are complicit in the crime. Terence wanted to think, and he was speculative about this, that if you hear a witness or if you read a witness and you don't respond as a secondary witness, then you are complicit in a crime of some sort. And since the crime was perpetrated against humanity, you are you're perpetrating or helping to be complicit in a crime against humanity, namely yourself, by not knowing what to do as a secondary witness. Carolyn quoted the moment where he talks about the survivor's scream beginning to be our own scream. And in the case of some people who respond to the Holocaust, it's a literal scream because you don't know what to say, especially when reading Excremental Assault, that chapter. And then he said, and here's my question to you, the three of you, and then he says, as Carolyn quoted it, when this happens, when you begin to get inside these works, as he did in the library, as Carolyn did in her conversations with him, when this happens, the role of spectator is no longer enough. That changes reading, it changes being a student, it changes being a respondent. So my question to you is, after all these years, what do you make of that second turn? The first turn is the one Leona so well described, by focusing on survivors as heroes for surviving, and the second turn was toward us. All three of you have been deeply affected by Terence's work. What does being the secondary witness mean? What does it mean for students and readers and viewers of films to realize that the role of spectator is no longer enough? Who would like to take that on? Kind of a big question. Carolyn, first?
Well, for me, the idea would be that witness begets witness, and that we are as responsible, and that is to say, able and perhaps morally compelled to respond to what we learn from our reading, from our wandering about the world, and from our listening to others. We are as responsible for that, and to others, as we are for that which we learn firsthand. That when we know a thing to be true, it becomes a part of the world about us. Witness begets witness. We like to separate these things in our own culture and to say, well, firsthand witness is what matters. But actually there are many ways to experience something. You can experience something by listening to the voice of another tell you something that enters you so profoundly and deeply that you're changed forever by it. So we can't let ourselves off the hook so easily. You know, it's something that we have to acknowledge, our infinite obligation to the other, our infinite and inexhaustible obligation. That's Levinas, I just stole it. But I think that's how I view this. And I think Terence also viewed it that way, finally.
Rabbi Joseph, spectatorship is not enough. What does that do to scholars, readers, listeners, witnesses of witness? And can you speak right into the mic?
Sorry, yeah.
There.
I think what he discovered, and he actually does say it somewhere, that I was looking for the quote, so I copied it down somewhere, but he really believed that you could enter the Holocaust by reading it. He really believed, and he did it. I mean, he was able to talk about the camps as if he had been there with enormous accuracy. And it was reading the accounts, which, as you so beautifully put it, the poetry of witness. I was thinking of Babi Yar a little bit when you were talking about that. Not the greatest poem, but does the job. And these poems are the Holocaust. They're not, I think it's that you were trying to say that. They're not about the Holocaust. They are the Holocaust. And it's like, a lot of people don't want to go there because they know that the price of entering that world is very high, and you don't come back out so safely and so easily. And he discovered this. He discovered this, I think, by accident. When I spoke to him all those many years ago, he said he wanted to write a book on heroism, and he got sucked into this vortex, and he discovered that the Holocaust is not something that happened to a lot of unfortunate people a long time ago, but if you wanted to, it was right there. And once you faced it, you realize that maybe I shouldn't have gone there.
Leona, it's a challenge to the scholar, isn't it, to realize that you have to go into this vortexically, if that's the word, and that being a spectator, or as Terence puts it in his preface, the stance of detachment is no longer relevant for the scholar or the teacher.
Any reader becomes implicated in one way or another when reading these materials, and the scholar in particular, because the scholar is trained to write about what she or he reads. So the scholar becomes implicated as well, and there's no end of it. When one tries to understand what happened, reach some kind of a level of understanding, one has to read more and more and more, and the books begin to read oneself at a certain point. One begins to think about one's own responses. Exactly why am I reading this?
Yes.
Is it just all for the best reasons, or is there maybe something else in it that I would hate to admit? There might be this kind of a self-questioning which is wholesome, I think. Emily Budik has recently published a book called The Subject of Holocaust Fiction, where the subject is not the theme, but the reading subject. The writer as the subject, the reader as a subject,
Yes.
and so on.
Yes. No longer
how-
reader as object.
True. And I also thought that we should not congratulate ourselves on any of this if we have submerged in this material, and because maybe we were more sensitive precisely in our earlier years when we knew that this material existed, but we were afraid to come anywhere close to that torture chamber. Maybe we were actually not inured, not hardened. In any case, what I'm saying is that the being read by these books should also involve not congratulating ourselves on it.
Being read by these books, holy cow.